All right. Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? Woo! Okay. Welcome back to the conference. What's up? Oh, the camera's here. All right. Welcome back to the conference. We hope whether you've had a wild night at the Colonnade Bar or if you've stayed up working on homework very, very late like me, you're back and ready to learn more about UAEM and the fight for equitable access to medicine. So I'll hand it off to Ashish to kind of just go through our agenda for today, and then we'll get right in. All right? Sounds good? Cool.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. I hope the bagels were good. So today for the agenda, we have a pretty full pack of things to do. We're going to start off with the student panel. We'll have a lot of our student leaders from across the country come and kind of talk about their work. After that, we'll have a breakout session, and we're going to go into our keynote speaker, who is Dr. JC Mugunga, who is the Chief Medical Officer at Partners in Health. And then after that, we're going to have lunch in tandem with the poster session. So as you can see, there's some amazing posters on the wall, and we'll get a chance to look at that, have some of our students speak about their work while getting some food. After that, we're going to take a group photo, get everyone together. We'll have 2 more breakout sessions throughout the day, and we'll finish off with the plenary panel, which is mandatory, so we can bring everyone back here and have um, a good time, and then we'll finish off with dinner. So get excited, and we have some pretty cool stuff going on today.
Ooh. All right. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce the next person coming to introduce the next panel. Her name is Hannah Wu. She is our chapter co-president, and she's done a lot in organizing all of this conference, finding the speakers, just doing a lot of stuff. So I'd like to give a round of applause for Hannah to come up and introduce the speakers.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here. So I'd like to invite up our next panel, student panel. Yeji is a 4th-year undergraduate at McGill University majoring in physiology. She's been an active member of UAM since 2020 and joined the North American Coordinating Committee in 2021. At the McGill chapter, Yeji is leading in web development and donations tracking platform. As part of the CC, she's also involved with the Empowerment Committee. So can we welcome up Yeji? I'd like to also welcome up Nick, who is a 2nd-year undergraduate student at Ohio State University. He's majoring in biomedical sciences with a minor in pharmaceutical sciences. And he's been involved in starting the OSU chapter with UAM and joined the North American Coordinating Committee in 2023. So let's invite up Nick. Victoria is a senior at the University of Western Ontario. It's a mouthful. Majoring in chemistry and biology. She grew up in Hong Kong, where access to essential medical services was limited. Can we invite up Victoria as well? And finally, Pranav, who is part of the UNC Chapel Hill, started up that chapter and has been involved with organizing and starting the ETAF and AAP with UNC Chapel Hill. Could we invite up Pranav as well? All right. Amazing. So thank you everyone for being here. Why don't we go around and start first with introducing ourselves. Could you guys state your name, your year, your major, and then walk us briefly through how you discovered UAM, why you decided to get involved, and what has kept you going?
Hey, hi. I'm Pranav Pinapala. I'm a 2nd-year student at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I'm majoring in public policy and public health. Um, I discovered UAM because during the COVID-19 pandemic, I realized a lot of the inequities globally with access to vaccines, and that kind of led me to more articles and information about on affordability of drugs, prescription drugs within the United States, uh, mainly insulin, and realizing the way our patent system is structured, it was kind of frustrating. And I was working with a student advocacy group on doing a healthcare advocacy panel, and Justin was actually on that panel. It was really, really cool to see him. And from him, we were able to go to something called the RX Allies, which almost was like a secret society. I was like, wow, something like this exists. But that led me to UAEM and realizing that, oh, I can make a change as a college student within a global health. So that was how I discovered UAM.
Hi everyone, my name is Victoria. I go to Western University in Ontario. I'm a 6-year student. I'm doing chemistry and biology. I switched major a couple times. I discovered UAM when I was at the student fair in 2nd year. I wanted to get involved with Western. And like Hannah mentioned, I grew up in Hong Kong where accessibility to medicine is very limited to a lot of people. And my dad had liver cancer, so I really got that firsthand experience. And that's actually why I moved to Canada. And so when I know more about UAM, I know what it does, how we advocate and kind of reduce the health disparities. Like I know that it is something that I'm very passionate about. So I've been with UAM for 4 years now, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Hey everyone, my name is Nick Marshall. I'm a current 2nd-year undergraduate at the Ohio State University. I originally got involved with UAM. Sorry, I should mention my major. I'm majoring in biomedical science. I originally got involved in UAM when some upperclassmen within my program kind of pitched an organization to my class of cohort peers, and I was really drawn in by like the student-centered movement and just kind of like the ability to make local change at our institutions where we like sleep, eat, work, live, and kind of like develop as young adults. But that change in a community that we are so deeply invested in has a global impact, and just kind of the whole idea of using our position as students to kind of really not only improve our own university's practice, but really make sure that our universities are held accountable for their global public health missions and stuff like that was something that really drew me in. Was something I not had previous exposure to, and was something I did not really realize that I had a power to do as my student. And what's kind of kept me going is the people in this room right here, the wide network of similarly motivated students that are dedicated to making these hard changes at their own localized level to really like come together collectively to make these global impacts of something that's really unique.
Hi everyone, my name is Yeji Song. I'm a 4th year at McGill University, majoring in physiology. I've been part of UAM since 2020, and how I found out about UAM was through a club fair, which was pretty awkward because it had to be done online because of the pandemic. So it was just nice to roam around like that online platform. But what drew me to UAM was sort of the multidisciplinary aspect of it. It's really while it's mostly focused on healthcare, we need expertise in, for example, policy, law, biomedical sciences, and in some aspects, business as well, how a business operates. So that really got me interested in the club, and I have been part of it ever since.
Great. And could we just hold the applause till the end? Yeah, I loved everything that they said. I'm Hannah. I'm a junior at the Hopkins chapter, majoring in medicine, science, and humanities and anthropology. And so my story actually with finding UAM was I started as an engineering major, and I wanted to do something with biomedical engineering, and then did a summer program where I was living with low-income community. And that changed my heart for the type of person I wanted to be. And I came in as an engineering major and also pre-med, which is a very hard combo. Props to people that do that, but could not be me. Yeah, but pre-med, and then found UAM through another pre-med organization, and it was actually Tayaba, if she's in the room, but she was organizing a COVID-19 rally. And I was like, wow, there are people that care about access to medicines and are like creative and protest too. Like that is exactly what I wanted to do. So that is how I got involved with UAM. But I loved everything that they said here. There's UAM encompasses a variety of backgrounds with law and policy, and it's really the students here that sustain it. So the next question is, can you guys tell us about your experience starting or sustaining your chapter? What was the hardest part about starting your chapter or sustaining it, and what were some challenges that you faced along the way? Yeah.
So, to be honest, the hardest part about starting a chapter is actually starting it. So, the biggest issue that I had with starting the UAM chapter, was a lot of resistance from the club kind of structure, and the organizations that would approve clubs on campus. They kept pointing at like issues within our constitution, and then we were trying to reach out to the tech transfer office during that time because actually getting the organization approved was a delay. And it was so exciting when I got an email saying, okay, we can meet on like Monday. And that Monday, it's been like 4 weeks. So what I realized is with technology transfer office, it keeps getting postponed. And that's a really frustrating process. There's a lot of resistance between students and the people that actually are, selling those biomedical licenses.
Mhm.
So starting the chapter, that's one big issue is actually getting things, going. But another one is actually being able to frame the issue in a way that's appealing to students. I mean, students are busy in almost every single major. So I think the hardest part is actually getting people that are dedicated and motivated, actually want to join the community. And I think that was the biggest challenge in finding people that could do that. And I think now actually having some people that are really interested and motivated in helping sustain the chapter, it's really inspiring. And I hope to actually sustain the chapter and keep it going because this work is really, really important.
I actually didn't start a chapter, but I've been president second year in a row now, and I think the biggest challenge probably like trying to meet the expectation or continue the work that the presidents in the past have been working on, and then find ways to improve that, and that include like restructuring the club. And we have different committees, like we have assets, we have advocacy and events. I guess just trying to like navigate how we could best use each committee and like focus on that. Like we structure advocacy for external work, so doing A2M week, coming to conference like this, and then having access to work internally at Western, how we can implement ETAF, which is probably the biggest challenge. And my amazing VP, Access Vanessa, is in the room right now, and she's been working so hard to work on the ETAP report for the past couple years. And so this year actually is our first year to actually put that into action and reaching out to hopefully the technology transfer office. We reached out to Megan, we reached out to Justin and Celine to kind of see like what ways we could get people's attention and how we could move forward. And that's like the one big challenge that I feel like we've been postponing or like don't really know how to navigate it. And like he said, I think hardest way is to get people engaged, especially when people at the student fair, a lot of people just sign up for clubs and they don't show up and no one answered to emails. And I would be posting things, spamming people's phone, and no one just show up. And so like finding ways to get people engaged and like really finding people who are passionate about it, to actually put in the work, I think is a really big challenge as well. And I'm sure it's like a really big challenge for other clubs. And yeah.
Would definitely have to echo what they both just said about trying to meet people where they're at, because we have to kind of really take this big idea that we've gained a lot of comfort with, and that's super complex, multiple layers, kind of simplify that down and pitch it to someone who might be passionate about it, but you don't really know in what capacity or like personal experience that they have that kind of really drives them to be motivated about access to medicines. And so then trying to find a way to like reframe this issue and pitch it to them in a way that they might understand, or kind of meeting them where they're at currently within like the learning curve is definitely like a challenge, especially at like club involvement fairs when like someone's just passing by and you have like 20 seconds to sum up this whole like 20-plus-year organization, this whole movement that's kind of on a global scale. It's a really complex process, but and just kind of additionally, like an ongoing challenge. Like, okay, so we have this idea, people can get passionate about it, but just a lot of times when I've like tried to engage new people are like, okay, so what exactly specifically would I be participating with this organization? Which is a very valid question. So it kind of takes a little bit of like hauling on like my own end to kind of like map out these project set goals and like kind of get started. So that way, when I do make these pitches and I'm able to like establish those connections with new students, I can like specifically point out different opportunities for them to pursue. So like more recently, I've been like, oh, like, well, we're transitioning to like the new US report card, and like you have the ability to collaborate with students from across North America, kind of like emphasize like the issue of like global health grades and stuff like that. Oh, we're also starting like a state policy team with our Ohio like Medicare Medicaid office to kind of increase like prescription drug affordability for families on Medicare. Oh, we're also interested in clinical trials transparency, and we kind of started to already like work on this, so that way they have multiple opportunities to engage in a way that they feel comfortable and that they have like the bandwidth for, but then also just kind of like to kind of like take their enthusiasm and have multiple different outlets for them to pursue that in has been really essential.
Yeah, I completely agree with what all of you guys said here. And I feel like this idea of having multiple outlets for people to get engaged in is really important because like as a club leader, of course you want members that are engaged in the projects, that are very active in the projects. But once you recruit those people, then I feel like it's also the executive's job to provide projects, tangible things that they can work on, which admittedly it's sort of difficult to do in the nature of UAM because like Nick mentioned, there is that learning curve. So I'm not sure if we're on to tips yet, but like a slight tip, I guess, would be to really expedite that process in the beginning. Get that, make sure everyone is educated on UAN's principles from like the start of the meetings so that you can really get them going in the projects. And just having those outlets, it doesn't have to be literal projects. It can just be, for example, elevator pitches, practicing elevator pitches about UAM within a club setting where people can like can feel safe to make mistakes and learn and grow ultimately. So like having that multiple outlets, I feel like it's really important, and getting those engaged members, I completely agree, is the most difficult part of starting a club or relaunching a club, which was sort of my case at McGill.
Yeah, I love that. I would also just add that the hardest part with starting the Hopkins chapter is the learning curve of getting what is ETAF, what is AAP, what is licensing, why should I care about licensing? And it took a year for us to even like learn all the language around it. So I would also just say that like for chapter members who are trying to start a new chapter, yeah, I think taking the time to really learn the language around it and learn your why is super important in sustaining the chapter. And then also it reminds me, many of what you guys said also reminded me of what the alumni panel speakers are saying about reframing the issue in a way that gets people to care. So many of you guys talked about the different projects that the UAM is currently involved with, from licensing to clinical trials transparency. There's so many avenues that people can care. So thank you all for that. So what are you most proud of accomplishing through UAM, and how have you guys grown as an individual? Maybe we can start with Yeji this time.
I guess I'm also part of the McGill chapter as well as the CC. So it's kind of twofold. As part of the CC, I think one of the biggest accomplishments, along with the empowerment team, like Nick here, is starting the chapter engagement program. And I'm sure some of you guys have been on that program, but it's basically sort of a boot camp to get those club executives really educated with UAM in a very systematized manner so that we schedule a meeting with you guys and try to coordinate chapter specific goals, chapter specific logistics as well, all the steps that you need to accomplish anyway. But we do that in a systematized manner so that everyone's on board. Another benefit of the chapter engagement program, sorry for plugging our program here, but it's also you get put in a cohort with other chapters that are starting. So you don't feel alone. And of course, you're not alone in this journey. Everyone is in this together, so you get to share your struggles. In terms of as a member of the McGill chapter, I would say is starting a web development project called Donations Tracker, which is basically a platform to track donations within Montreal. It started out as a platform to track personal protective equipment during the pandemic, but since the pandemic, at least in the Montreal area, has subsided, we switched platforms to broaden the scope to include all sorts of donations. And this idea actually started with the Innovate for Health project, which I think is led by Johns Hopkins here. So yeah, that was pretty fun and interesting.
Similar to Yeji, I also serve on the empowerment team on the coordinating committee, along with being a member of the Ohio State chapter. So I guess I'll start in reverse order. Through the Ohio State chapter, I'd say I'm most proud of engaging in a talk with our technology commercialization office. We had a talk, I think, 2 weeks ago from this coming Monday, which we had a previous conversation with them and then we kind of got ghosted. And then it turns out they didn't tell anyone, but the head of the office switched. So we kind of had to start from ground zero again, which was a little unfortunate. But the two chapter leaders that met with them last year were abroad on a trip. So it was all up to me. And I was like super nervous going into it. I was like, oh my God, like this is my first time I actually have to like do this all by myself. Like no Justin, like no Ade to support me. Like, can I do this? And then I went in there and they asked like really good questions. And I felt surprisingly confident in my ability to answer them. And it was also great to have Andy there from MPP to kind of answer the more legal questions that I was severely underprepared for. So that was like really reassuring that like they were listening and that they do care like about UAM and kind of like what I had to say in my perspective as a student. So that was like a really reaffirming experience of kind of like why I'm passionate about pursuing this. With the empowerment team, Yeji mentioned kind of starting the chapter engagement program, but I'd say I'm most proud of like the success of the chapter engagement program just this year. Since I'm still in my first year of the coordinating committee, I'm confident to say we have somewhere between 15 and 20 new chapters that we've reached out to and helped establish this new year between North America and or between the US and Canada, which is a like really large number. And it's really encouraging that we were able to get such great engagement from a lot of new institutions or institutions that previously had chapters. And it's just, again, like also really affirming that this is a mission that other students care about. And it's really kind of like up to us to make sure that they have all the tools and resources and connections necessary to let their passions flourish.
I think I'm the most proud of for Western is probably just having the club expanded a little bit. UAM wasn't really that well known at Western. It's a pretty small club. And I do think that our members have expanded a lot. And also like reaching out to the like the chapters here because we're one of the very few Canadian chapters. And so we didn't really reach out to others, and especially like with the North American chapters, like being here today is not really something that we even thought about. And so in the past years, like I started talking to Justin a bit more, trying to get ourselves more involved with like the organization as a whole. So that's definitely like something that I'm very proud of. And then also, like I've mentioned, with the ETAF paper and the Global Health Report, we've been working on so hard on it for the past few years. My VP's been editing, updating, and not really knowing what to do, how to navigate it. And so this year we're really at the finish line of publishing it and getting professors and researchers to recognize it and really put it into action, which is I think is a really huge breakthrough for UAM and just for Western in general. Yeah, so I think that's that.
I mean, we just started the chapter, but I think something that I would say proud of in the health advocacy movement itself and within starting the UAM chapter and being involved with it is actually when I was working with Generation Patient, which is a health advocacy firm. A big thing was actually being able to get new upcoming high school students and university students involved in the Access to Medicines movement. Uh, Involved in something we had called the Health Policy Scholars Program. So I think the same thing applies to kind of what I've been doing or what our chapter has been doing the past 2 months at UAM is being able to get members, being able to accumulate them by actually connecting them emotionally, connecting them neurologically. I think it's really important to like frame the issue properly. When I'm talking with econ students, I'm talking about the inefficiency of our patent system, the misuse of taxpayer funds. Misuse is probably not the right word. um, when I'm talking to political science students, I'm talking about legislation. When I'm talking to pre-med students, we're talking about clinical trial transparency. We're talking about the interaction between doctors and patients, medical ethics. I think that's a big thing is being able to actually connect them to the issue at a core level, because once they're connected with it, they will actually continue to advocate for the issue. Whether or not they're involved in the chapter, it's something that now that it's within their stream of consciousness. They're actually they want, and most people that I talk to actually want to get involved the minute they're connected. So I think the biggest thing I'm proud of is actually being able to frame the issue to different people within UAM and outside too.
Wow. Yeah, all these people here are super, super humble. So yeah, I think even the way that you guys, what you're most proud of is sustaining and sharing the voices of people who, who change your lives. It's incredible to see, and this is why we're here. And I would just say, I guess for me, my most, I think what I'm most proud of achieving through UAM is actually, I would just say having fun. And because I think it is really hard to keep pushing for policy in a sustainable way. Sometimes you lose sight of the vision. And for us, it was when at the Hopkins chapter, we organized the Clinical Trials Transparency Rally in front of FDA. And that was something that I didn't think that we could do, because at Hopkins, oftentimes we're not really involved politically, I would say. There's a lot of people who care about medicine, but organizing a protest is something that we don't see often. So it was drafting those posters and figuring out the logistical things of like, where do we show up in front of the FDA doors? So yeah, that is something that I look back on with fond memories. Okay, so you told us what you guys are most proud of accomplishing. So what do you guys foresee yourselves doing in 4 to 5 years, and where does UAM align with all that?
In 4 to 5 years, it's a long time. I hope to be in maybe law school. That is something that I'm currently interested in. Um, I have kind of like a general vision. I want to work with the Federal Trade Commission to go after drug patents that are being misused. There's an issue called evergreening, which is basically, misusing. I mean, it's pretty much misusing, making minor modifications to currently existing drugs in order to extend the lifetime exclusivity of a drug and hike up the price. So the Federal Trade Commission has actually been going after pharmaceuticals with that, and that just sounds so exciting to do that in antitrust law. So I hope 4 to 5 years I'm in law school studying, focus on health law, and actually work towards making medications more affordable and accessible.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Now I'm like, I don't know what to say about mine. Well, I applied to be physician assistant. So I've always wanted to be in medicine because, like I said, like growing up in Hong Kong and like having that first experience with my dad. And so I knew I always wanted to be in medicine. So hopefully in 4 to 5 years, I'll be a physician assistant, and meanwhile also contributing to UAM. So even though I'm graduating, I've talked to Justin before that, like, whatever grad school that I go to, whether it's U of T, Manitoba, I really hope to start a chapter if there isn't one. And if there is one, I hope to be a part of or even be on the committee team at UAM. Is the club that I've been for the past 4 years, and it's the club that I wish to be a part of for many years to come, to see the growth and the impact of everyone in my club and everyone on the board, seeing like how the impacts that we actually see and everyone working hard towards such an amazing cause, is not something that you really see in other clubs. So it makes it very unique. And yeah, like I hope to, whatever career I do end up in, that I could still be a part of UAM.
In 4 to 5 years, yeah, that does seem like a really long time away. I foresee myself hopefully in an MD PhD program, because I do really value like connections with patients and just like getting to know them and their stories and like kind of working together to improve their immediate health. I feel like UAM fits in with that. Because what I've kind of learned from hearing physician speakers is that it's one thing to kind of like get their history, understand their symptoms and like what they're going through, identify like the cause or make a diagnosis, and then come up with a treatment plan. And then in like a physician's mind, that might be like the end of the story. It's like, okay, like I figured out a way how to help this patient in the best way I can. But from the patient perspective, things like cost and accessibility for medications can still be a hurdle to accessing this care and improving their health. And it's just kind of like a frustrating idea that like we can have a solid plan in place and that we have therapeutics available to help improve health, but something like cost is withholding that health and well-being from a person. And I'm a firm believer that everyone has the right to be healthy and have like a peace of mind in every capacity possible. And I feel like UAM as perspective, or UAM will help me with that perspective of, okay, just because I was able to find a medication to prescribe, that's not the end of the story. That doesn't mean that this patient is completely taken care of. And I feel like there's other things that go on with like legislation and policies that also play into making sure that this full treatment plan and caring for a patient holistically is taken care of and achievable.
It's really difficult to follow up with these answers. um, and in 4 to 5 years, I would see myself in an MD program because I do want to pursue in medicine. While that might not be my direct path right now, I do want to pursue in medicine in the future. And of course, all the principles of access to medicine, healthcare equity that I've learned at UAM will always be in my heart with wherever the future takes me.
Yeah, so we have someone trying to go down and work at the FTC. We have medicine, becoming a PA. Yeah, and for myself, I would just say similarly, becoming a physician, but still keeping the values of UAM and thinking about who has access to medicines, and who are we really serving, keeping that throughout. The type of physician I want to be and the type of person I want to be too. So I guess a final question is, what area would you guys like to see UAM grow in? And some of us are still students, so we can totally still achieve those things. Then what's a practical piece of advice you would like to offer to someone starting a chapter or looking to get involved with UAM? And maybe you can start with, yeah, on that side with this.
I guess just coming from a person on the empowerment team, just to see more chapters grow in North America would be really great. I know this year we're focusing primarily on US chapters because our primary focus was Canadian chapters last year. But yeah, and also I guess just kind of a personal hope, it would be to see some of the OG chapters come back, the chapters that were more active before the pandemic. But of course, the pandemic put a toll on everyone. What we call like the vertical transmission just kind of got cut off in some of those chapters, for example. Yeah, so just having those OG chapters come back would be really great. and also maybe to see more also potentially regional collaboration, because I know like in the States and in Canada as well, there's a lot of state level and provincial health policies that are different from the federal level. So having that regional collaboration, I feel like would be really cool.
Okay, so my idea for this answer just got scooped by Yeji. So I was also going to emphasize like the inner chapter collaboration, because at least from an empowerment perspective, it's like a chapter reaches out to us and then we connect them with a network, where I kind of feel like we could create an environment on some sort of platform where chapters have open, like unrestricted access to each other and can like facilitate their own collaborations without having to like come through the barrier of finding like a coordinating committee or contact, or like going through Justin like that to foster more of those like regional or like even national like collaborations. I feel like that's something that the empowerment team is currently has in mind, and we're trying to like brainstorm some ideas of how to facilitate those connections. And I guess one piece of advice I'd leave for chapter members is find your support network, whether it's you're starting a new chapter and it's you and your best friend or your roommate, something like that, or it's just you and you have the support of the coordinating committee, Justin, whatever leaders you have, to kind of help overcome some of those initial burdens and kind of help eventually expand your network. But really having people that you can rely on and bounce ideas off of and keep you motivated is really essential early on in your chapter progress, but also at any point in this journey.
Kind of what they said already. I guess like more of the chapters that were closed down because of COVID come back, and like hopefully more chapters will be open in Canada and more collaboration um, between chapters for that. And then in terms of advice, I think just I guess be patient. I know it's a very long progress, and I've been in the club for like 4 years now. It takes time, it takes effort, and you're gonna hit roadblocks and stuff, but you just gotta keep going. And like Nick said, like build a community, like really, like I know it's hard to like find people that are engaged, but if you have like even 2, 3 core people, that's really all you need. And like even a student fair, and it's hard to stop someone and like kind of convince them or talk to them about UAM. But if you get to talk to one person that day, you're still building a community with that one person, and just kind of like gotta have the attitude, just keep going and know that like if you're passionate about it, like you can make a difference. It might take a year or two, but that's okay as long as you do get to do what you want and you do see a small change, a small difference. Like that's still a victory that you should celebrate.
Yeah, it's really hard to follow up with all that. I think one thing that I really liked about UAM is like just the number of chapters you already have, and seeing more chapters would be like really great. I'm from North Carolina and I'm from UNC, so I'd like to see a Duke chapter for sure. I think that's a big thing. And then another thing is I think when starting a chapter, I love the way UAM focuses on actually research first and then advocacy, because advocacy without research and actually knowing the core of the issue is kind of not as productive as it could be. So I think UAM is doing a great job in that, and I'd hope to replicate that in my chapter and other chapters too, to actually ensure that the chapter leaders and the core executive team, the members, everyone knows what we're fighting for, why it's so important, and actually getting out there and being able to advocate for it within our time at college and the years beyond.
Yeah, I love that. The only thing I would add is learn about the history and the legacy of UAM. As like an anthropology major, I think history is super important. But the history of UAM is one that is rooted in the sciences, but also rooted in research and creative activism. So when I've heard stories and how people got around hurdles, or the ways that people have navigated the talking to the tech transfer office, it's like that sort of history of UAM is one that like inspires me. And also we have the opportunity to extend that legacy and change change what UAM focuses on as well with new campaigns. So that is the only thing that I would add to everything else that has been said. But yeah, I would like to turn this time now to questions and from the audience. So if anyone has anything for these student leaders up here, yeah, we can pass a mic around.
The audience?
The audience.
Okay. Just like pass it up.
So I feel like for what I heard from a lot of you, it seems like you guys are in pretty new chapters or like you guys have just started them or revamped them. What's your vision for like, what do you ideally want your chapter to look like? Because when you graduate, like what do you hope is the effect? What do you hope it'll become actually?
I can go first with that. So, I mean, of course, I guess it's a very natural human thing where if you started that chapter, you've invested a lot, you would like to see it grow more once you graduate. Because I mean, most like student leaders here, we're bound to graduate sometime. So we do have to leave our chapter. So one tip I would have for that is this actually helped with my chapter, and I've seen this in a lot of chapters as well. Have at least one of your executive team members, or it doesn't have to even be on the executive board, any member on your chapter join the coordinating committee. So for those of you who don't know, the coordinating committee, or we call the CC, is it's a group of students that organize the North American wide campaigns, like strategize those North American wide campaigns. And at least having that one member makes the club so much more connected to the larger UAN network. And it really motivates and drives your club to be more and more engaged throughout the process. So at least I feel like, I don't know if this was the answer you're looking for, but yeah, just having that connection, I feel like is really helpful.
To kind of add to that, I'd say um one, getting like a solid project like structure and like goal setup is something that we're always like striving for and trying to refine and improve. But additionally, long term, I kind of want it to be a like community, because I guess like when thinking about like how to pitch, the idea of like, oh, like come do one meeting a week and work on a project for an hour is like not necessarily the most appealing idea to pitch. So like having kind of maintaining balance between like having a really passionate group of students working towards these projects while alternating it with like other club related things, because we are mostly like college students. So like having speakers, social events, and being invested in each other's lives outside of just like the like scope of the projects is something that will ultimately help those projects, because again it's just about like establishing relationships with others and making sure that that aspect of like what we do is also taken care of. So that's something that I also want to see flourish over the next few years.
For Western, I think just getting that ETAP implemented at Western Research is something that I really hope to accomplish this year in the next couple of years. And then, like Nick was saying, just continue building that community, because it is a very ambitious club and policy driven, things like that. And so instead of like having people to just work on projects, we've been actually introducing like volunteering opportunities, so ways that we can still socialize, but we are still getting involved with some sort of communities in a way. Like recently, we donated a bunch of different care kits for the like different unhoused community in London, and so things like that really did keep people engaged and come to our meetings. And then from there, we could educate them more about UAM and kind of expand that community. So hopefully in the next couple of years, UAM Western will continue to grow and maybe collaborate with other chapters in Canada, coming to the conference again next year, things like that. Something that I hope to see.
Yeah. So just starting our chapter. So by the time I graduate, hopefully we have more connections within UNC itself, actually able to connect with the tech transfer office, having contacts with the public health school, maybe the public policy school, being able to come to UAM conferences. I'd like to bring more people from my chapter to the conference, and I just like to see, as they all said, the chapter just grow, the community grow. I think that'd be really, really exciting to see.
Yeah, I think for the Hopkins chapter, I would like to see us have more collaborations between like public health students, grad students, and also not just undergrad students. We've sort of dipped our toes in a lot of the different campaigns going on at Hopkins, or at least with UAM. We have Gabe, who's literally works at the tech transfer office. We have we have one of our good friends now, who you'll also hear from in the next panel, Tony Keys, who runs the clinical trials at Hopkins. So we have people who are also involved in the clinical trials transparency and prioritizes that. So we've dipped our toes in a lot of different campaigns. But I think seeing that pan out, it would be totally cool to see an ETAF, the Equitable Technology Access Framework, implemented at Hopkins as well. But yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
I was wondering, like, so far all the advice and comments have been great. Could you kind of lead me through the start of the project to the end of like the project you're proudest of working on, how you had the idea, and then how you implemented it and brought it to fruition?
Is there any project that you're more interested in?
Just whatever your proudest
I mean, like I said, like when we talked about the accomplishments, I guess for me would be the chapter engagement program or the web development project, the Nations Tracker. They're very different in nature and trying to see see how to like, I guess, make this more relevant across all chapters. So we all talk about like the chapter engagement program. So what we first did was we wanted to like, first I feel like with any project you need to really come together as a team and solidify your goal. What is the purpose of this project? What do we want to get out of this project? And having those things aligned across all team members, I feel like facilitates the future conversations in a much more smooth way. And then once we did that, then we decided, okay, so we want to educate chapters in a very like basically put them like through like a boot camp, like a pipeline. So to do this, we need to first introduce them to UAM. Then, okay, what else do chapters also need help in? Usually when they ask us questions, well, they need help on getting familiar with UAM campaigns, for example, the report card, ETAF, the clinical trials campaign. So we'll do a seminar on that. And then chapters also, once they have an idea of which campaigns to work on, now we need to get into the specifics. So how many executive positions will this chapter have? How who will be the president? How many meetings should the chapter have weekly meetings or monthly meetings? Because these things really depend on the culture of that specific campus. So yeah, so you decide, come together on what the purpose is, then you plan it out, and then the next step would be to actually execute the project, which I feel like personally is one of the most difficult parts of the project, because now you're done with the theory. Now you really need to get to the practical aspects of things. So, you know, when we're trying to recruit chapters, I mean, Nick is doing this amazing job right now, just mass emailing out to all universities and really trying to also on our end make sure that all of these seminars are scheduled and notified to the chapters in a timely manner so that we also respect your guys' time. So like, yeah, I guess that's how the entire chapter engagement program got planned. Do you have anything else to add?
On like the empowerment side, I think Yeji did a really like solid job of like kind of mapping out, I guess, like a broader scope of like how we kind of manage our goals and stuff like that. I just want to emphasize again, like what is the end goal, and then like what is the route that we want to take to get there, and then what is 1 month of progress, what is 6 months, what is 1 year, and like the steps that we have to take to get there. But kind of through pursuing that, I guess like my example is engaging in the talk with the TCO at Ohio State. When we were in that period of, we were like, okay, to implement the AP, we need to talk to our TCO. Even to get in contact with our TCO, we need to email them. We're probably not going to get responses. So every 2 weeks, we're going to send up a follow up. But when that was kind of stalling, and we found out that the head had changed, it's like, okay, so we can still push this, but we can't just like keep stalling at this one point. So like just kind of naturally with any projects, it's like, what other alternative route can we take to also work towards and move that benchmark towards our end goal? So for us, that was collaborating with our student journal, like our student newspaper. And we've been working since September, October with a reporter to put together this like large like project that we're hoping to get published by the end of the semester to kind of we're like, okay, so we kind of need to rally more student engagement on campus around this issue. What's an effective way other than just sending out emailing lists and stuff like that? What's a common form of media that students from the business school, from engineering, from humanities will engage and see this issue and maybe take time to like consider? And we felt that the student newspaper was like the most effective way. So we've been kind of working to make it like a larger project. Like she's interviewed Justin, she's interviewed Megan, I believe, about this issue to kind of like get all these perspectives. And we're finally like starting to wrap it up. And now hopefully with that publishing, we're going to try and focus more on like getting more faculty engaged, because there's been some talks about like open science at our university, like open publishing, stuff like that. How can we tie in like access to medicines to kind of get more like a faculty report around the implementation of the AP to kind of make the case stronger of like why they should kind of consider this. So it's just natural with any project, you'll have one like direct path that you're aiming for to get there, but then just naturally when you encounter like these stalling points or these road barriers, like you should actively be seeking out like other realistic and like achievable ways to kind of circumnavigate this almost, but then collectively they will all like kind of help move that like barrier farther and closer towards your end goal. And that's kind of like the exciting part of doing these projects, is because you can plan them out and then they'll just take so many unexpected turns and like establish so many unexpected like relationships and collaborations and stuff like that. And then kind of like looking back and seeing like everything you've done to like get to the point where you're at now, where it's like your goals feel a lot more like tangible and achievable. It's like a really rewarding experience.
That was a really good answer. For Western, I would say like the big project that we're working on is getting ETAP implemented. Um, Vanessa have been working really hard on editing the report, and I feel like we didn't really know how to navigate it, like I said. And so I think this year, in order to really push that project through, we kind of discussed what we want to accomplish this year. And in the beginning, like we kind of talk about like getting it updated, editing it, and then kind of reaching out to external resources to see how we could go about that and setting goals. And so we set a goal of publishing it by the end of this month, reaching out to people. We took advice from Megan, Justin, Celine, of reaching out to researchers that are associated with this kind of topic who might be interested. And the committee worked really hard to just reach out, like literally mass emailing a bunch of people, and we got really good responses. And so I think when it comes to a project like this, it's very important to know about the project, getting educated about like what ETAP is, different aspects of it, and setting goals, and reach out to resources. I feel like it's something that we didn't really do in the past. And so this year, that ones that we actually reach out to resources and like people that have experience doing this was really helpful. And yeah.
Yeah, so we haven't worked on that many projects yet. We are kind of looking into ETAF, but focusing on the report card. That is something that the report card project. I thought that was something interesting that we are looking into right now. During I think 2020 COVID-19's report, UNC's report card for COVID-19 specifically was a big F, and I think it was really funny looking at that. And I spoke with Professor Meyer at our university, and he was basically roasting UNC on its licensing policies and COVID-19 access um, throughout Twitter for like almost 2 years. So going to him and finding people on campus that are already kind of involved in focusing on health inequity, focusing in areas like that. I think that was something that really helped kind of like streamline any sort of project that we are interested in. And I hope to do something similar for clinical trials and ETAF.
This is actually a great question to keep in mind, because at the end of the conference, Justin will be leading a build your own workshop that will take you from basically teaching you how to build a campaign. I think most of these student leaders here have talked about like figuring out who your target audience is, who can you leverage, and who are your allies, and also like setting the short term and the long term and the middle term goals as well. And those are things that Justin will talk about in the final workshop. So stay tuned for that on Sunday. I think we have maybe time for one more question.
So my question pertains to your role as student leaders, and I wanted to ask, kind of personally, what kind of approaches and philosophies you all adopt in order to shape your team around you. And in that sense, for me, it's really important to have people that inspire you and kind of push you to have good ideas. That's what's important for growth. So I was wondering what you look for specifically in organizations you might partner with on your campuses, and just people in general that you want to have more involved in your service.
Cool. Does anyone want to start first?
I could start.
Go for it.
Sure. So I think mainly when we're looking to like partner with other organizations or having new leaders within our organization itself, kind of philosophy is that if first of all the person you're looking for, if they're already clearly interested, like first of all find people that are actually motivated, disciplined, have an emotional connection with the issue. I think when that's kind of settled, you can actually start working and believing in other people. And I think giving them a big philosophy that I have is giving your executive members just the freedom to do what they want to do, to let them figure things out on their own. Because the truth is, a lot of what UAM has been through, again with research and advocacy, is about just people doing what they believe is right. People fighting for justice, people standing up for issues that are relevant on a global level. And I think just giving people the freedom to explore on their own and actually take up causes and fight for what they believe in, I think that is the best philosophy in terms of actually leading the chapter. So obviously you need to find people like that. And I think just when you do though, it's very efficient. And another thing is when you're looking to partner with other organizations, a big thing that I did notice is seeing that they have a similar kind of discipline that you have. Setting up a chapter is a lot. Setting up a chapter and actually sustaining the chapter is a lot of work, and students are really, really busy. So seeing people actually have an organized schedule, have a time commitment, I think that's really important for organizations like UAM. So I think that's my advice. But yeah.
Kind of like what he said. This is kind of like my first big leadership role that I think take part in. And before I didn't really know what leadership really means. Like it's one person leading other, but from this experience, more like like really bringing people together and discussing things. And like he said, like open discussion, being open-minded to other people's ideas and really trust your executives. Like if they tell you ideas that that's what they want to do, just kind of trust them and know that like, okay, like take it a shot, like, like have the freedom to do that. I think it's the biggest takeaway is really to work as a team and discuss and things like that. Supporting each other, building the community, like I said before. And then in terms of organizations, so we have collaborated with different student club at Western, and I think one thing that I look for is usually people that have the same mission and values as UAM. We have collaborated with Doctor Without Borders in the past, things like that. Presidents and leaders from those clubs also have the same commitment, time commitment, discipline that will actually meet up with you, really passionate about the cause as well is very important. Yeah.
Pretty much everything I was thinking of has been said already. Again, just like identifying in your co-leaders. I think UAM really thrives in collaboration. So that being like a philosophy for working with other leaders, whether within its your own chapter or you're collaborating with other organizations, is really important to making sure everyone is kind of able to maximize like the characteristic or like the topic that they're most passionate about. And kind of making sure that as like a chapter leader, you're able to provide or plan out an opportunity for someone to thrive in that space. If they're kind of unsure about their direction is really important. And then again, just like taking on more of a collaborative approach and kind of like, again, trusting your other executive leaders and just kind of providing them the opportunity in the space to carry out what they feel like is best and to kind of like maximize their own like previous experiences. So for example, like if someone's really strong about like a social media presence, like just putting your trust in them and like having like a collaborative approach to kind of like manage that is more beneficial rather than just trying to kind of like micromanage from the top down. So I'd say like collaboration and then again just like listening and kind of like reflecting is really important to making sure that kind of everyone's in a space where they feel challenged in some ways, but also feel like they have the full ability to flourish.
I completely agree with what everyone said before. One thing I would add is while like having that mission and core values aligned with your team members, that of course is the driving force. But also I feel like just building a community within your chapter, like just everyone being able to talk to each other and then make sure that's like a safe environment. Also, everyone is very familiar with each other. I feel like it's also a very strong point because not just with UAM, but what I've just observed with other clubs on campus is if you have a friend group in that chapter, just everybody is just the bond is stronger, meaning that everybody wants to work on that project, not just on like a very professional level, but on like a personal level as well. So I feel like building that community as well, which is difficult because you're like, of course some people go to clubs to make friends, but not all people are like that. But having at least that some sense of community, I feel like really helps to maintain engagement throughout the time a person stays at a club. In terms of collaborating with other organizations, it really helps if the organization's values aligns with UAM's, of course. So, but sometimes we do need to collaborate with organizations that are slightly different from UAM. And in that case, I feel like what benefits most is if you make sure that both parties get something out of that collaboration, like each party benefits. And that means that each party has a stake in that collaborative effort. So everybody just tends to be more engaged and work harder.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, can we give another round of applause to the student leaders? So next up on our agenda is we're sort of now pivoting towards tracks. So you can choose between track A and track B. So the next thing is you can choose between clinical trials transparency or UAM 101. Track A will be in the Barber conference room, which is down there. And then track B will be in the East room, which is the opposite way. So on totally different ends of the hallways. But we will transition now to the different tracks. Thank you. You did an amazing job. Oh my gosh, you guys had such great answers to everything.
Thank you.